Can you do your white guy voice?
Code switching is an art that I deserve an award for.
So all my black folks that have to code switch at work, I feel like I'm top tier at this shit.
Hello, my name is Brianna. May I have your name and address, please?
Excuse me, what?
We see ourselves reflected in better characters, Indian Americans.
We rarely get to see ourselves represented in a group of girls.
We are taught from birth that there's a correct way to inhabit the world, a specific frequency we're supposed to tune our voices to if we want to be heard, or more importantly, if we want to be respected. In literature, this is the canon, or the standard. It is the linguistic architecture of the gatekeepers who behold traditional grammar as the absolute truth. We're told that there's a perceived manner in which we must arrange our syntax to take spaces our parents didn't have the shapes to fill. And so we begin the stretching. We stretch our skin over bones that don't fit us just to fit in. We abandon our bilingualism, the octaves of tones we reside in, and the specific twist of the tongues we memorized from birth. We often soften ourselves. We edit our cadences. We code switch until the original versions of us feel like a secret we're not allowed to tell. But where do you actually reside in the performance of the Western world? What part of you is the most real? Who are you speaking for? Chapter 1, The Internalized Gatekeeper. The invisible editor is not just a natural byproduct of growing up. It is taught. It is rehearsed. For many of us, it is a curriculum. For most people, the gatekeeper first appears in the classroom, not just in what we're taught to read, but in what we're quietly taught to dismiss. We learn early which voices are treated as literature and which are corrected, smoothed out, or marked as inappropriate. We learn that some ways of speaking arrive already respectable, while others have to earn the right to be heard. While the pressure to speak standard English is centuries old, we can look to 2014 to see how the modern world continues to institutionalize this hierarchy. Under Michael Gove's leadership, the UK Department for Education transformed an abstract social preference into a strict mandate. By reframing the curriculum around the promotion of fundamental British values, the government effectively formalized the filter. Works that provided windows into structural struggle, like Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird or John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, were dropped to make room for a more UK-centric traditional focus. GCSE requirements shifted 70 to 80% of their focus towards a traditional English literary canon. Shakespeare, romantic poetry, and the 19th century novels. The goal was a rigorous expectation for schools to promote national cohesion through a specific polished lens of culture. This move was a deliberate act of linguistic imperialism. This institutional narrowing trickles down, forcing us to stretch our skin to fit into a mold of professional respectability. We're taught that our voices are only valuable if they're dressed in the right syntax. In the Raoul Peck documentary centered on James Baldwin, Baldwin exposes respectability as a fundamental lie. He noted that telling youth to speak proper to buy power is a deception. This performance doesn't grant power, it only ensures your voice is sanitized enough to be tolerated. It is the double consciousness in action, the constant exhausting effort to see yourself through the eyes of the world that views your natural rhythm as something that needs taming. Even when the gatekeepers allow a marginalized voice into the room, there's often a tax. A voice is frequently only deemed as important if it tells stories that sensationalize pain without destabilizing the audience. Baldwin argued that works like Uncle Tom's Cabin were historically praised because they allowed readers to feel sympathy without being fundamentally challenged. His underlying claim is that protest fiction is accepted when it reduces human beings to symbols. Pain is welcomed only when it's didactic. This is the ultimate trap. Your vernacular and your truth are dismissed as improper, while your trauma is commodified as trauma porn. If pain is a price of entry, it isn't acceptance, it's extraction. Chapter 2, The Cost of Mutilation. This persistent effort to align ourselves with the standard is not a cost-free transaction. This ongoing mutilation of our natural voice leaves behind a profound psychological wreckage. As Ray Gwynne Smith asks, who is to say that robbing a people of its language is less violent than war? To understand this violence, we look to Gloria Anzaldúa. In her essay How to Tame a Wild Tongue, she describes the literal and figurative attempts to control speech. She opens with the visceral image of a dentist pulling metal from her mouth, complaining that her tongue is too stubborn and too strong. This was a metaphor for how society treats any voice that refuses to lie down and be quiet. And Anzaldúa argues that ethnic identity is twin skin to linguistic identity. I am my language. When we allow that skin to be flayed by the standard, we begin to police ourselves with the cruelty that mirrors our oppressors. We start separating ourselves from the communities we were raised in because we've internalized the belief that we speak a bastard language. To look at someone from our own background becomes like looking into the mirror, and we're often afraid of what we'll see there: penis, shame, low estimation of self. We reach a point where we use English as a neutral language, even amongst our own people, fearing censure. This constant stretching leads to a state of double consciousness, where the authentic self is effectively cancelled out. One cancels out the other, and we're zero, nothing, no one. You become a thief in your own house, never truly residing in your own voice because you're too busy accommodating the ears of others. You reside in the borderlands of your own mind, feeling like a linguistic nightmare rather than a whole human being. Chapter 3. Inside Somebody Who Loves Me. The turn towards ourselves begins with a refusal to remain in that zero state. While the internalized gatekeeper has finally been identified, the only way to survive is to move from a language of performance to a language of presence. This shift is articulated by Harmony Holiday. In her poetry manifesto, Somebody Who Loves Me, she addresses the psychological haunting of being trapped in a standard that doesn't love you. Holiday references a poem by Amory Baraka, who wrote, "I am inside somebody who hates me." She identifies this as the low self-esteem bred when we're forced to mimic the colonizer's forms. But Holiday offers a radical revision. No, not anymore, not today. She proclaims that I am inside somebody who loves me. She argues that being inside a black body and loving it in the West is electric and full of life. For Holiday, the act of writing is a proof of that love, a refusal to remain hostage behind self-inflicted enemy lines. She suggests that our only duty is to act worthy of ourselves, which begins with reclaiming the authentic rhythm of our thoughts. This reclamation of the interior is mirrored in the works of Dan S. Smith. Their 2020 collection, Homie, represents a pivotal shift. Smith stopped worrying about the white gaze entirely. They realized that the immense energy required to translate themselves, to provide a glossary for the world that views their tongue as wild, was a form of linguistic self-sabotage. Homie was a conversation with a friend rather than an argument with an oppressor. Smith focused on the beloveds, the intimate circle of friends and community for whom the work is actually intended. Smith states bluntly, "White people can learn from it, but that's not who I'm writing for." Chapter 4. The raw material of survival. There is a fundamental difference between a language that is designed and a language that is lived. Standard English is designed for the boardrooms and the courtrooms. It is a tool of cold precision that demands we flatten our edges. But the most authentic version of yourself exists in the anti-standard, the slang, the shortcuts, the specific phonetic heat of our own homes. In Nozak Shange's For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, the refusal of the standard is a visceral political act. Shange recreates the phonetic soul of her characters by dropping capitalization and breaking traditional spelling. She forces the reader to hear the frequency of black womanhood without the civilizing filter of traditional grammar. Shange's work proves that you can't capture the rainbow of human emotion using a monochrome language. To fix her spelling would be to silence the very woman she is trying to save. Her work proves that when the language is broken, the people inside of it can finally be whole. By bypassing the standard, she creates a direct, unmediated line to the audience's ear. It is a reminder that the rules of correctness are often just obstacles in the way of the truth. Chapter 5. The Radical Act of Retrieval. If standard English is a tool of cold precision, then the most vital parts of your life are currently being held hostage by its rules. We're taught to treat traditional grammar as a godly science, but Joel Leon reminds us that language is actually a battleground. He recognizes that the standard is often just a synonym for stolen. Leon's work is the embodiment of linguistic disobedience. He draws his spirit from hip-hop culture, which lives to dismantle the ivory towers of literary gatekeepers. Leon explicitly refuses to respect the value we've assigned to these rules. He argues that Ebonics, slang, and urban vernacular aren't errors to be corrected. They are the bread and butter of a new wave of artistry. Because so much has been taken from his people, Leon takes liberties with the English language freely and willfully. In a world where systematic justice is nowhere in sight, these broken rules are a form of reparations. Every misplaced comma and line of slang is a way to detangle the roots of a language that was whipped into his bones. Linguistic disobedience is not a lack of skill, it is a retrieval of the self. Chapter 6. Acting worthy of ourselves. So we return to the question, who are you speaking for? If you're still speaking for the gatekeepers, you are still stretching your skin over bones that don't fit. But acting worthy of ourselves means choosing a language that actually loves us back. It means moving away from the zero state of self-hatred and finally accepting that your wild tongue was never the problem. The standard was. Gloria Anzaldúa reminds us, "Until I can take pride in my language, I cannot take pride in myself." Joel Leon leaves us with the only rule worth following. I still like my language like I like my rules. Broken. The performance is over. You are no longer zero. You are the version of the story that only you can tell, spoken in the language that finally brings you home.